President Buhari in London for vacation and routine medical checkup.
Minister of Transportation condemns slow pace of work on the Kaduna-Kano rail project.
We should move away from politics and focus on construction. The speed is extremely slow.
Saudi Arabia lifts ban on direct flight from Nigeria and 21 other countries.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we continue our conversation on the Constitution Amendment bills.
All right, now the National Assembly has concluded the voting stage of the constitutional amendment process, now which is expected to eventually lead to the fifth alteration to the 1999 Constitution. Now, after the various stages, of course, have been carried out exhaustively.
Now, last week, the lawmakers in both chambers of the National Assembly, that is the Senate and the House of Representatives, considered a total of 68 bills, out of which 22 were rejected and 46 scaled through for purposes of amending the Constitution.
All right, now in terms of how each of the chambers voted, the Senate passed 49 of those bills, rejected 19, while the House of Representatives passed 52 of the bills, but rejected also 19.
Of course, Claire. Now, the Senate President, Ahmad Lawan, made it clear from the outset that only bills passed in both chambers would be transmitted to the state houses of assembly for concurrence, as any bill which fails to scale through either the Senate or the House of Reps automatically stands rejected by the National Assembly.
All right. It is also no longer news that, sadly, the bills requesting special seat, should I say women autonomy, special seat for the women in the national and state houses of assembly, as well as affirmative action for women in political party administration, were among the rejected bills, and that's in spite of advocacies from women voices, women groups, again led by the First Lady of Nigeria, Aisha Buhari, and of course the wife of the Vice President as well.
Well, it's a case of the fact that in life sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Now, it's expected that going forward, women in the country will not relent in advocacy for affirmative action until the desired quota for representation in governance is achieved. But there are other salient bills that were passed by the National Assembly, which we shall look into, that's to say, in terms of their substance. Now, such bills include the movement of airports, prisons, power generation, and railways from the exclusive list to the concurrent legislative list.
Kisley, you speak as if though the women's agitation has ended. Well, you know there was a protest, taken to the National Assembly, and a lot of people are saying, look, we've not really seen. Women are still pressing on with their demands, that the National Assembly, took a second look at those bills rejected. So I think the press is still on the side of the women. But again, we'll get to hear.
Yeah, just to be realistic, I mean, we are virtually now in the election season. If APC goes ahead with its convention in a matter of weeks, and the parties get ahead with their nomination processes for their various candidates for the election, the same lawmakers we expect to vote on those bills will be out there on the field, canvassing for votes. So it would appear that the Ninth Assembly, in terms of revisiting those bills, just might not be in a position to do so. It's just being realistic, because we're having the elections beginning in February next year, and we know how things are with us. Yes, but it's not the end. I mean, it's to say there will always be a 10th Assembly, there will always be an 11th Assembly. I'm not saying they should
when it comes to gender matters, Kingsley, but let's not go into that. I know
take a look at what happened to the petroleum industry bill. It wasn't passed by one assembly. Take a look at what happened to the Freedom of Information Bill. The Freedom of Information Bill spent over 10 years in the legislature. And then the PIB, if you looked at the process from when it started until we had the PIA.
Those are very technical bills that really need to, be scrutinized. The gender bill, considering the sensitivity of it and the importance that, of course, you attach to women, it's a simple matter.
No, it's not so simple.
A simple matter.
Those who voted, find out from those who voted and why they voted the way they did. It's not so straightforward.
That is the critical point.
So there are critical cultural issues that we are yet to surmount.
Okay, Kingsley, I know there are quite a number of issues that will be looked at, but there are other interesting bills, again, that was passed by the National Assembly, and especially those that seek to establish the office of the Attorney General of the Federation and that of the state as separate from the office of the Minister of Justice or Commissioners for Justice of the state. And that's in order to make the offices of the Attorneys General independent and insulated from partisanship.
Well, the litmus test for the bills, as indicated by one of our guests when we had the first round of conversation on the amendment bills last week, will be at the State Houses of Assembly, where a simple majority of votes is required in at least 2/3 of the state assemblies. That's to say 24 State Houses of Assembly for their concurrence before the amendment bills will then be sent to the President for assent. Now, the question is, what are the chances that those bills that have scaled through the National Assembly will have positive concurrence or otherwise fail at the State House of Assembly? We had seen that before, Claire, when there were efforts in the past to amend the Constitution. National Assembly passed those bills. Unfortunately, the bills couldn't muster 24 State Houses of Assembly.
Indeed, Kingsley, it is the litmus test which is ahead. Of course, as the voting at the State Houses of Assembly would also, like you said, establish whether the victorious bills truly resonate with the wishes of the majority of Nigerians at that subnational level. Again, we will have guests on the program today, that they will give us more insight into the implications of, all the bills, how the legislators, voted, and the impact that it will have on democracy and governance in our country. Hello and welcome. It's another bright new day here in Abuja, and we're reaching you live from our studios on NTA Network Service. I am Claire Adelabo Abdul Rasak. Thank you for joining us.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I joined my colleague Claire to also welcome you to the program on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. In the course of the program, we have our regular complimentary segments, and this include newspaper review and business. For now, here's Comfort Amudu, who has the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Comfort.
A very good morning to you, Kingsley and Claire. President Muhammadu Buhari has arrived London, the British capital, on vacation. During his visit, expected to last 2 weeks, the president is to undergo his routine medical checkup. The Nigerian leader was received on arrival in London by top Nigerian government and High Commission officers. Nigerian's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema, has expressed gratitude to Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Dmytro Kuleba, for approval given to establish a humanitarian corridor and authorize evacuation of Nigerian students from Sumy starting from today, the 7th of March 2022. And the minister, who made this known in a tweet last night, however, noted that the big challenge remains procuring buses, which he says Nigeria is doing everything to make happen. He praised the commitment by the Nigerian ambassador to Ukraine, Shino Alege, in the evacuation effort so far. In other news, the slow pace of work at the Kano-Kaduna Rail project, which is just about 5% completion, has been condemned by the Minister of Transportation, Chubike Rotimi Amechi. The minister, who made the observation while inspecting the level of work at the site, questioned the intention of the contractor handling the project.
I think CCC is beginning to play politics. We should move away from politics and focus on construction. The speed is extremely slow. Equipment is supposed to be 2,000 plus. All they have brought so far is 541.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Mele Kolokari, led key players on inspection of petrol stations in Abuja for an on-the-spot assessment of the fuel situation in the nation's capital.
We do not think there's any sabotage. What is very true is that whenever situations like this come, people buy more than they need. This is what we call panic buying. And that until those worries and fears are satisfied, Nigerians will continue to come to the fuel station. Also, when people come in, they buy a full tank instead of a fraction of it. That means the cars will stay longer in the fuel station, and that is why you continue to see the queue until they are able to increase the supply to make sure that those gaps are filled. Otherwise, we don't think there's any evidence of sabotage.
Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says the federal government is set to initiate behavioral programs capable of discouraging the youth from engaging in ritual killings and other criminal activities for a better society. The minister stated this in Abeokuta, Ogun State, at the grand finale of the 2022 Lisabi Festival Day.
Behavioral change programs targeted at youth in a bid to address these problems. I am happy to inform you that content providers are already working on it. The National Film and Video Censors Board has therefore been directed to take the issue of ritual killing seriously while censoring and classifying films and videos.
And strength, influence and power of a woman is a force that cannot be undermined in fulfilling the essence of humanity. Her role in ensuring communal and world peace amplifies the beauty of creation. Speakers at the 2022 International Women's Day commemoration service noted these and more.
God knows how important we are, so don't consider yourself anything less. Any country that neglects 50% or more of its population is walking on one leg, and we don't want Nigeria to remain disabled. We have a voice that will continue to speak until we get there.
The Bible told us already that there are many adversaries, and so we are to fight. But this fight is a good fight. It's a fight of faith. It's a fight of prayer. Stir up the courage within you to lay hold on the things that God has given to us already. Our women have capacity. They are strong.
The National Hajj Commission of Nigeria receives with joy news of lifting of ban on direct travel into Saudi Arabia of 22 countries, including Nigeria, effective from the 5th day of March 2022. In addition, a near total cancellation of COVID-19 restrictions were announced, indicative of a return to regularity, and the only requirement for entry into the kingdom is full vaccination with the accompanying registration card as gateway. Consequently, the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria rejoices with Muslims all over the world, Nigeria in particular, for the normalization of worship after 2 years of ban. And consequently, international Hajj would be open in the 2022, and the Commission seizes this opportunity to inform the public that guidelines for participation in the Hajj shall be communicated to intending Nigerian pilgrims after signing of the MOU between Nigeria and the Saudi Ministry of Hajj and Umrah. That's the news for now. Good morning, Nigeria. Continued shortly with Claire and Kinsley. Stay tuned.
The 157-kilometer Lagos-Ibadan Railway is the first double-track standard gauge railway to be built in West Africa. The Mobolaji Johnson train station is a masterpiece, an infrastructure that is gradually becoming an iconic building in Lagos State. The modern facilities put the station on a world map of train stations. Likewise, other new train stations across the country built to world-class standards. The train and its convenience is indeed an admirable effort, with commendations from Nigerians.
This is a station that we have to commend the federal government for putting a beautiful face, empowering us in Lagos State, not only in economic and political arena.
I can say that I'm really impressed with the infrastructures in place. Kudos to the Minister of Transportations. Kudos to the federal government.
Truly, good things are coming out of Nigeria, and the federal government is deserving of all the applause.
Now everybody knows I'm the man.
Enjoy the reward that sharing brings with the Airtel Family Plan. Get bonus talk time, SMS, and data for each family member you share with. Dial *141# now. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Thank you for the rejections that taught me to keep striving. Thank you for the long hours that taught me discipline. Thank you for the knockdowns that taught me to bounce back, and for the unexpected victories that taught me to never give up. Thank you for making me who I am.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve their sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels. Leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news, or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency. Contemporary times require practical skills to remain competitive and relevant in your organization. Therefore, take advantage of NTA TV College Short Proficiency courses to sharpen your professional skills. Administrative Principles, Processes and Practices. Date 14th March to 8th April 2022. 4 weeks. Modern Trends in Broadcast Media Marketing. Date 14th March to 8th April 2022. 4 weeks. Basic Broadcast Accounting and Auditing. Date 4th April to 15th April 2022. 2 weeks. Audio Engineering Operations and Maintenance. Date 18th April to 29th April 2022. 2 weeks. The course fee for the 4-week course is 180,000 naira and the course fee for the 2-week course is 150,000 naira only. Accommodation inclusive. The venue for all courses is the serene and secure environment of NTA TV College near Old Government House, Rayfield, Jos. For more inquiries, please call 0803-314-4383 or 0806-980-9807. NTA TV College, Jos. Training you to be the best you want to be.
All right, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on Africa's largest TV network, the NTA. It's now time for business news, and again we join Comfort Amodu.
The mining sector's contribution to the national GDP is pegged at 10 to 15% by 2025. Also, the volume of global trade for gemstone, one of the more than 44 minerals in Nigeria and jewelry market, is estimated at $300 million and projected to be above $444 billion by 2022 by the National Bureau of Statistics. As an alternative source of foreign exchange earnings, the government is determined to develop Nigeria's mines and steel sector for a conducive business climate, particularly for investors.
Now, there's so many industries in Nigeria, and their raw materials are actually sourced from minerals. But because we don't mine the minerals, or in case where we mine them, we export them in the raw form. And then our companies, our industries now go back to go and buy these semi-finished products as their own inputs into their industries. So the first thing we are doing is, we mine the minerals, But after mining them, we must do some beneficiation locally. We must process locally. When we process locally, we'll be able to satisfy a lot of industrial needs. We're going to create value along that chain. You know, people will be employed. We're going to save the country for forex. You know, instead of importing this material that go into industries, of course, we're going to be providing them locally, and they can pay for them in Naira. It makes their production cheaper, makes them more competitive, and of course, brings more money into the coffers of government.
To ensure that every local government has an industry that can process raw materials into finished products, and that is giving effect to what we call the value chain, agri-value chain.
Key industry players are unanimous in their submission that investments in the mining industry will preserve the much-desired forex, as an estimated $3.3 billion is spent on steel imports.
Thank you very much, Comfort, for the business package. Coming up next is Newspaper Review.
All right, and time to take a look at trending stories on the front pages of daily newspapers. Of course, Bayo Atebe is not yet back, so Kingsley and I will do the review. Let's start with the Punch newspaper, and the Punch has as its lead story, World Bank projects 4 trillion naira 2022 fuel subsidy. World Bank projects 4 trillion naira 2022 fuel subsidy, and experts predict more loans. It comes with 3 riders. Nigeria could spend 360 billion naira monthly on subsidy, says World Bank. And federal government will borrow more to finance rising fuel subsidy payments, experts. And NNPC releases additional 381.8 million liters of fuel. Of course, queues lessen. That's the lead story. Just a bit above the nameplate now. Oshibajo, others in charge during my UK checkup. And that's according to President Muhammadu Buhari. Details of that on page 11. Implement 2009 agreement, fund or short varsities, says ASU. Implement 2009 agreement, fund or short varsities, says ASU. Page 2. And APC chairman meets today. Uncertainty surrounds zonal congresses is on page 2. Now, just in between that story, court workers threaten fresh strike over judiciary autonomy. Court workers threaten fresh strike over judiciary autonomy, and 19 doctors to appear before MDCN for misconduct. And again, let me take you to the stories trending at the foot of the paper. Presidency groups Northern Youth ask Oshibajo Emefiele to contest. It's on page 16. And another Gombe Assembly member dumps PDP, joins APC, also trending there. Many injured as Plateau leader supporters clash in festival. It's on page 41. Benue businessman, gunman killed. Herbalist commits suicide on page 5. And NDLEA seizes 294,440 tramadol tablets, others, and arrests 41 in nationwide raids. And the picture story for us today, and this is, it's right there on your screens, servicemen of Ukrainian Territorial Defense, Valerie and Lisa, during their wedding at a checkpoint on the outskirts of Kyiv on Sunday. And you see, okay, Kingsley, we'll talk about that later.
All right, so let's take a look at the leadership front page. Below the name flag of the leadership, COVID-19 interventions. CBN ends loan holiday, demands repayment. President off to London, says Nigeria in safe hands. And 19 days to convention. APC won't collapse on my watch, President Muhammadu Buhari vows. Says party will survive post-convention crisis. And we are not opposing Buhari on consensus. That's according to Al-Makura. President won't subscribe to imposition, Senator Musa. Russian invasion creates Europe's worst refugee crisis since World War II. Hajj, Saudi Arabia lifts ban on Nigerian flights, and Emefiele, agricultural sector, Nigeria's saving grace. Those are the headlines from the leadership. And from the Nation newspaper, we'll take some headlines from above the name flag. Niger workers begin 7-day warning strike. NLC decries neglect. And 1.5 million flee Ukraine to escape Russia bombings. 1,076 Nigerians back home. And 196 health workers hired in Yobe. Zamfara indigents, that's 120 of them for Togo University. That's on page 8. APC zoning panel submits report amid disagreement. Leaders split over key NWC positions. That's National Working Committee positions. Buhari, we will overcome crisis. CBN's Naira-dollar policy is not working, says presidential advisor. Accept my leadership or quit, Obaseki tells Edo PDP leaders. That's on page 7. Claire, those are the stories that we have. First, just to reference the president's trip to the UK, if you recall, the initial plan was for the president to attend the 50th anniversary of UNEP, that's United Nations Environmental Programme, in Nairobi, Kenya, and take off from Kenya to London on a 2-week medical vacation. But the president returned to Abuja last Friday at about 1 o'clock, but then took off again yesterday, Sunday, to the United Kingdom for his medical vacation, and he should be away for around about 2 weeks, according to the information that is out now. So the president is out, of course, and the vice president is in charge with the usual administrative arrangements that they have at the presidential villa. There is no vacuum. That's right. Okay.
There's no vacuum, Kingsley, and it's all there. He said, according to the papers, that the vice president and others are in charge while he's away. But the one that is very worrisome, Kingsley, is the story trending on the front page about ASU and the federal government, and the maybe intention. If what we read by the government to renegotiate the 2009 agreement, and all that. And also he's saying, look, if you should implement the 2009 agreement, fund it, or shut down universities. And that's not good for us. It's not good news for us. I think that during the week, the Minister of Labour was on one of our sister channels, granted an interview, and, made a statement to the effect that, there may be paucity of, funds, and so a need to renegotiate the 2009, arrangement. And I think that the stance of ASU, again, is on the extreme. There must be a coming together. Look at the situation, the economic, variables at the moment, and see how both of you can come together and move this education forward.
Well, I think my views on the incessant strike, my views are pretty clear, and just to take a look at the facts of the latest development, the federal government has set up a committee to review the 2009 agreements, and a number of them are professors and pro-chancellors of institutions. I think it's a 9-member committee to work that out. But there was also a statement, I didn't see it on more than one occasion, but it was said to have been a Twitter post, that's to say a tweet from ASU, saying that on the basis of what the government has done, then if the committee is not ending and submitting its report until April, then the strike would continue until April. If you remember, when ASU started this strike, it said it was a 1-month warning strike. So on what basis then would they be extending the strike into the month of April? Now, if it is the issue of finance, and finance is at the heart of it, You and I were not on set, but Kieran was with me last Tuesday. When I raised the poser, I said, look, why do we keep running away from the fact that government, particularly the federal government alone, cannot shoulder the cost of tertiary education? And I gave a number of examples. If you're running a postgraduate program, you pay fees. If you are running a distance learning program, you pay fees. And so why would it be that the federal government continues to rely on the good old days of oil boom of the 1970s, on the basis of which a number of us attended universities? But I wouldn't say that because I attended university tuition free, then of course it should continue when we see that the standards are declining. So simple mathematics, or arithmetic if you may, if there are 1 million students in federal universities throughout the country, and they were to pay 100,000 naira as tuition fee, check out what amount that will amount to. It will be about 100 billion, which you can then use for this purpose. And is this so costly to say that some families cannot raise 100,000, that's to say 50,000, per semester for purposes of university education?
I agree. That could also be a solution in the long term. But, with regards to the ASU strike, we're looking for an immediate solution so that schools will be reopened and students go back to classes. And if what, this paper is reporting, that ASU is saying or alleging, that government should, stick to the 2009 agreement, fund it, or the universities will close. That's worrisome. And what I'm saying is maybe a call out to ASU and to ASU to please consider the the economic variables at the moment. There's no money, no fund. There's paucity of fund. Yes. So probably the government will not be able to meet all the 2009 agreement. So there's need to look at it and then come to an agreement that will be favorable for both parties.
Claire, yes. the risk is that it is this quick fix that has always been a problem over the years. Okay, they go on strike, sentiments are all whipped up, and so our children cannot continue to be at home. Let's resolve this. They reach a temporary agreement. The government gets some reprieve. The lecturers say, okay, now we're going to keep our gunpowder dry, and then we keep talking. After a year or 2 years, nothing happens, and then they come back again on strike. They will tell you that they have suspended their strike. If there is need for a total solution, why not? And as we talk about recruitment for political office holders, maybe the government also has to now begin to worry about the recruitment of academics in Nigeria. How many of them really deserve to be in the academia?
Yes, and Kingsley, just before we end this review, we must also put the blame where it is. Government should have realized the burden of carrying on with the 2009 agreement before now.
Well, they have. They said
before now.
Anyway, Claire, that's a fine point. I'm sure the Minister of Education and his Labour counterpart will sort out those issues just before we leave. I'm sure you must have seen the story, or our viewers would have seen the story. We don't have it on the front pages today. It has to do with the power of the social media and the government's response to it. In Lagos, at the weekend, there was some ceremony, the investiture of an Erelu, and at the ceremony of Victoria Land, that's Oniru.
I didn't believe it at first.
the souvenirs they had, the souvenirs were jerrycans of petrol, incendiary material, at a party venue in Lagos. So, of course, it was captured in the social media, circulated, and promptly the Lagos State Public Safety Commission responded. The Commissioner for Information also issued a statement. The event venue has been sealed, and the lady, Erelu Okin, she has apologized and said it was to assist people. That was an endangerment of public safety. I don't understand this kind of negative creativity that it is petrol now that you use as souvenirs.
I didn't think it was true, honestly. I didn't believe it. But quickly, the last one, the wedding between the servicemen of Ukrainian Territorial Defense, Kingsley. To you, what does people
I mean, there's love in wartime. There's no question. There's love in wartime. So it's not unusual. People get married.
So why did we condemn the youth corps member who also got married? You know, you should remember the issue of the youth corps member and the soldier.
Of course, that decision was reversed on account of public outcry. That I mean, that people get married on the front lines of battle and all that. But certainly, it's happy news for that. You do know that some servicemen also get married while their wives are at home. Then they go to the battlefield, not certain whether they will return alive or otherwise. Some 1.5 million.
And then they get married there as well.
No. When you're on the front line, you are facing bullets. You are facing bullets and missiles. You know, this war is not the kind of kaka you hear from armed robbers. Missiles. When you hear the sound, you know that the world is coming to an end.
All right, Kingsley. We wish the couple, the best of luck and hoping that the war in Ukraine will soon come to an end. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We've just ended our newspaper review. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
I don't see why we carry pikin go hospital because of ordinary fever now.
Ordinary fever? Pikin wey im body dey hot like that?
Now cloth now soak inside water, take rub her body. She don't dey play even as I come out.
If na malaria na im dey worry that pikin, by now you no know say the thing for don worse pass.
Yeah! Wetin? No be my generator dey be that one? Abeg, make I quick call mechanic.
Carry cloth and water.
Yes. For generator?
You use cloth and water clean our pikin body. Go use that same pattern for the generator. Make we see as e go work.
Sense, mama. I receive sense, oh. See, I go do am correct now. Make you carry this phone and help me call the engineer. Make I carry her pikin sharp the hospital.
Receive sense, oh. Do am correct.
If fever catch you and you no go treat am sharp, if it's serious pass as e dey, especially for pikin dem whenever reach 5 years.
Do test. If na malaria, finish your medicine. If no be malaria, your health worker go tell you wetin to do.
Now, Federal Ministry of Health and American people them bring on this message.
There are certain moments in the day when I need my me time to just unwind and indulge.
Now available in 30 grams and 450 grams.
The Nigerian aviation sector is rapidly growing with the construction of new international airport terminals in several regions of the country. The new Murtala Mohammed International Airport has an estimated passenger increase of 30 million annually and 15 million for Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. Malam Aminu Kano International Airport is also expected to open new frontiers for the region with more travel capacity for the annual Hajj, while the new Akanu Ibiam International Airport, Enugu, avails more business opportunities connecting the industrial cities in the region to the world. These new terminals beat world-class standards with enabling infrastructure that aid air travel, tourism, and the eventual growth of the country's GDP.
Open up commerce and, of course, link us to international societies.
People from international community will come here to do business, and then that will bring in more revenue to the state.
Now, distances can be seamlessly covered as Nigeria keeps raising its bar to suit global infrastructure standards.
Thank you for the rejections that taught me to keep striving. Thank you for the long hours that taught me discipline. Thank you for the knockdowns that taught me to bounce back, and for the unexpected victories that taught me to never give up. Thank you for making me who I am.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
COVID-19, that is the black swan of the century, has actually hit the whole world very hard, even the strongest of economies, and Nigeria was not spared. But due to the proactive stance and steps that the president has taken, we've been able to come out quickly. The president has consistently said we must invest in infrastructure, even as we're investing in human capital, that we must invest in infrastructure, because at the end of the day, that is what will bring about a sustainable economic growth. So the president has given us our directive. He has said you must make sure you pay salaries and pay pensions, but you also make sure that the critical projects of roads, railway, airports, bridges, major infrastructure that are meant to drive the growth of the economy, that we consistently invest in them, even if we have to continue to borrow to do so.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back. Time for us to begin our conversation this morning on, of course, the constitutional amendment bills. And let's listen into our correspondent's backgrounder, and that's Joseph Altson.
Six bills were considered by both chambers of the National Assembly towards the fifth alteration of the 1999 Constitution. The Senate passed 49 of the bills and rejected 19, while the House of Representatives on its part passed 52 and rejected 19. Senate President Ahmed Lawa explained that only bills passed in both chambers would be transmitted to the state houses of assembly for concurrence, as any bill which fails to scale through the Senate and House of Representatives automatically stand rejected by the National Assembly. The lawmakers endorsed bills for financial and administrative autonomy for state legislators, judiciary and local governments, as well as the inclusion of airports, railways, correctional centers, and power generation in the concurrent list. The lawmakers also passed the bill seeking free compulsory basic education, the establishment of Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and that of the state as separate from Office of Minister of Justice and Commissioner of Justice, as well as independent candidacy for elections. Bills that failed to get the nod of the National Assembly include that seeking a person who is a registered voter and resident of the FCT to be appointed as a minister representing the FCT in the Federal Executive Council, an office of mayor of the FCT, that of pension for presiding legislative officers, and the bill seeking to override presidential veto in constitution alteration. Also rejected were bills for removal of transitional law-making powers of the executive and that of diaspora voting. The bills passed and rejected so far are already generating public debates among analysts. While some are giving the National Assembly thumbs up in some areas, others are expressing disappointment about certain bills that did not scale through.
Members of the National Assembly represent the parties, and so you would expect that proposals that are either progressive in nature or promote democracy will receive some level of consideration.
There were about 3 attempts to amend the Constitution in a remarkable, very significant way. However, the processes often get scuttled at the state houses of assembly.
Are the bills passed so far reflecting the wishes of majority of Nigerians, and what are the chances that they will get concurrence at the sub-national level? Guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be sharing their perspectives on how the National Assembly voted and the implication of some decisions taken by the lawmakers.
Thank you very much, Joseph Altson, for that backgrounder. We have 3 of our guests joining us via Zoom, and one, of course, will be coming in from our Kaduna Network Center. Let's welcome Honorable Benjamin Kalu. Honorable Benjamin Kalu is the spokesperson of the House of Representatives and also chairs the House Committee on Media and Public Affairs. He represents Bende Federal Constituency of Abia State. Honorable Kalu, pleasure to have you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. Also, part of this conversation is distinguished Senator Uche Ekunife, a senator representing Anambra Central Senatorial District. She is the chair of the Senate Committee on Women Affairs. Senator Ekunife, it's a delight to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much for inviting me, but I'm Chairman Senate Committee on Science and Technology.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much for the correction. So once again, Senator Ekunife, Chair of the Senate Committee on Science and Tech. All right, Claire.
All right. Let me also introduce from Enugu, who is also joining us via Zoom, Professor Joy Izilo. She's HOD, Department of Public Law, Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, and human rights activist. Professor Zilo, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
All right, Kinsley?
Okay, well, there's honorable...
Okay, there's another.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Our guest who is joining us from our Kaduna studio, beg your pardon, Honorable Suleiman Dabo. And Honorable Suleiman is representing Zaria constituency in the Kaduna State House of Assembly. We appreciate your presence. Thank you, Honorable.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigeria. Thank you.
All right. Well, once again, our pleasure to have all our guests with us on the program this morning. Let's begin with distinguished Senator Uche Ekunife. Distinguished Senator, last week was a pretty busy one for the upper legislative chamber and, of course, the House of Reps in terms of the work that they had to do with regard to the bills that would form, if ultimately passed by two-thirds of the State House of Assembly, form the fifth alteration to the 1999 Constitution. They would know, of course, the bills that have generated the most public reaction. That's to say, if you like, the gender bills that were rejected by the Senate. 49 of the 68 bills before the Senate were passed. Give us an insight into, if you like, the mind of the senators in considering those bills that passed. You'll listen to some of them in our background report, for instance. And some of these bills actually touch on aspects of devolution of powers.
Yes, especially the one that has to do with the airports. We passed the devolution of power for to remove the airports from the exclusive list, so they can be in the concurrent list, to allow the state governments to build their, manage the airports, and gain revenue from those airports. But the bill the one we didn't pass, the one that has to do with women, especially bill number 35, bill number 37, and the bill number 68. These are the bills that have generated so much concern for Nigerians. Many of us, especially the women in the Senate and House of Representatives, canvassed very vigorously to get our colleagues to join us in passing that bill. And we feel that those bills are very progressive in nature. These are the bills, of course, that will balance the gender parity in the National Assembly and other positions. We are quite surprised that our colleagues, most of our colleagues, did not support that bill. We wonder what could be in their minds when they were voting against those bills. We've been repeating them for the past three consecutive times as during the 7th Assembly, 8th Assembly, and 9th Assembly, and they still shut it down, despite the fact that the President's wife was there to lobby. The Vice President's wife was also there to lobby, and we've been engaging our colleagues for a very long time, the need for them to pass the bill. So we're surprised when they shut the three bills down. But there are other bills that are quite important that we passed, especially the local government financial autonomy and the local government administrative autonomy. That has been my dream bill anyway since I was in the House of Reps, and I'm happy that the National Assembly, both chambers, passed the bill. We also have the separation of Attorney General's office from the Minister of Justice. That's quite a very important bill. The National Assembly also passed that one. So we have a couple of them that were, progressive bills that they passed. But those 3 bills that didn't pass, we'll continue to represent them until they see the need for them to pass them. We have, if you go to Sweden, Bolivia, and other countries, women are having almost 48%, 50% positions in both chambers and also in appointed positions. So we're surprised when they didn't pass them. But I promise you that we'll keep bringing them up.
Right, distinguished Senator, thank you. I'll still remain with you. I'll just keep the gender bills aside for the moment and return to the bills that were passed. I'm wondering what, would have informed the passage of the bill on financial independence for state houses of assembly and the judiciary, when all the while this has been a back and forth game.
Yeah, financial independence for state assemblies passed through, and the essence of that is to remove the governor's encumbrances on state assembly so that they stop being rubber stamped and be able to pass and come up with those bills that will, of course, that will change the economic situation in this country. A situation where whatever the governor say, whatever he wants, the state assemblies will get it because they depend solely on the state executive to finance the activities and finance the programs they have. So that's a very important bill that we passed. We also passed that of financial autonomy for local government too. That one is also very critical, and we will pass them. Now it behoves on the state assemblies. If you remember in the 7th Assembly, we passed that bill, but surprisingly, the state assemblies shut it down. They rejected giving themselves financial independence. I hope it doesn't happen again, because most of them, put along line the decisions and the aspirations of their governors. I hope this time around they will see reason why they should be able to pass it.
Is there a reason why there is hope that it wouldn't happen? Because I'm just wondering, if this is not a waste, a futile effort, because I mean, at that level, at the subnational level, things remain the same. The conditions remain the same. The governors are still in charge, and to a large extent, influence the outcome of whoever, is in the state houses of assembly. So what has changed that gives you hope that this time it will be different?
Sorry, I'm not hearing you.
Well, I said the conditions at the state houses of assembly remains the same. Obviously, the governors are still in charge. They, to a large extent, influence, those who get elected into the House of Assembly and all that. So what has changed that gives you the impression that this time it might be different?
I just hope, because majority of the governors will be serving out their 2 terms in the office, and no two situations are the same politically. What happened there and what was obtainable in 7th Assembly are not the things that are obtainable in 9th Assembly. And I believe that most of the governors will have today, we are legislators before, now there are governors and most of them are passing out. I believe that they will see reason why they should get their state assembly members to pass this financial autonomy, or rather financial independence. It's very important. So the situations are not the same now. Most of them will still be risen, and there was more advocacy when we started this than it was in 2007. I'm sorry, in the 7th Assembly. So I believe this time around that they will pass it. And the kind of legislators we have today in the state assemblies, especially the speakers, because we had engaged the speakers of state assemblies there about 3 weeks ago, and I could see the level of independence and sophistication and capacity in them. I feel that the chunk of people we have in state assemblies will definitely make a difference. They will pass the bill.
All right, Senator, thanks. We're going to have to pause you and return to you in the course of the conversation. Let's bring in now Honorable Benjamin Kalu. Honorable Kalu, let's first of all deal with the process and numbers. There were 68 bills in total that the House and the Senate considered. And the rule is that if a bill passes in both chambers, then the bill is deemed to have passed. If a bill fails in one of the chambers, then the bill is deemed to have failed totally. The Senate passed 49 of those bills, and we understand the House of Reps also passed 52 of those bills. I'm not quite sure, because I haven't seen your final report, to know where you are on the same page with the Senate, so that I would know what would then go to the State House of Assembly for concurrence. So right now, in terms of numbers, on how many of the bills are you on the same page with the Senate? You passed 52, they passed 49, which means 49 just might go. But tell us which of the ones we should look forward to in terms of transmission to the State House of Assembly.
Thank you very much. I must say that you have already answered the question, because you seem to know the constitutional provisions with regard to the processes. What you mentioned is the position of the law. Unless it passes through the pruning fork of the entire National Assembly, in this case, the two chambers, the Senate and the House of Reps, if not, it will not succeed. And granted that we approved more, we passed through more bills than the Senate. But to the extent of what the Senate has done, what we have done in excess will not see the light of the day. And if there are also ones that have been passed by the Senate that was not considered by us favorably, that also will not pass through. That is the position of the law. But the harmonization of the provisions where we agreed, or the clauses where we have agreement on, and the ones that we did not, will be out by this week, from the clerk of the both chambers of the National Assembly. So Nigeria should expect that there is not going to be harmonization, like the senator mentioned, that some of these bills that do not pass through, they will keep pushing. There's another amendment that is going to come up. Like you rightly mentioned, this is not the first, second, third, this is about the sixth. And we'll keep reintroducing the issues that concerns Nigerians. So that's the position of the law on the processes. Yeah.
I still with you, Honorable Benjamin Kalu. Again, let's get into the minds of the honorable members of the House. Why did you pass some of those bills relating to devolution, and why did you reject some of the bills as has been widely publicized? Let's other than the gender bills now. We know, for instance, pension for principal officers, the pension was struck down, immunity was also struck down, but there are other very critical bills in terms of devolution of powers, which speaks to the aspects of restructuring as canvassed mostly by some citizens.
Yeah, I must say that what the Ninth Assembly has done is a step in the right direction by introducing this element of restructuring bit by bit. Like the senator mentioned, the issue of aviation. I also was the one who introduced the bill on correctional services, leaving the exclusive list to the concurrent list, and I'm happy it passed through. And there are other ones that we gave our nods to. Gradually, we are getting there. Certain things are supposed to be under the exclusive reserve of the federal government. It's now being shared by the region, the states and the federal government. It's a step in the right direction. But when you talk about the mindset of the parliament with regards to how the pattern of the voting, the point must be made clear that each of us voted as individuals and individual representatives of a people, of constituents. I've always mentioned this, that there was no call where the whole members of the National Assembly came and sat and said, we will say yes to this, we'll say no to that. But what we voted on, reflected the consultations, the series of engagement with the stakeholders in our various constituencies. That's what they wanted. And the cumulative effect of it is either approval or disapproval, that is what played out. So our mindset, but if you look at the generality of how we flowed, is the interest of the parliament has been to reintroduce the people elements into the constitution. There has been this groundswell critical voices that have always said that the preamble of the constitution, where it said we the people of Nigeria, it's a lie. It does not reflect the truth. That the constitution that we have was not a product of public participation, and the people were not put on the center stage with regards to the constitution. So what the parliament intended to do with this review is to reintroduce people into the scheme of things with regards to the grundam of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's why we did a lot of consultation, public hearing, and all the rest of them, all the engagement. And the ones we were rejected because the people were against it. And the ones we accepted because the people wanted it. For one, as a member of the National Assembly, seeing how the executives, even deputy governors and governors enjoyed pensions, their various places, the president, the vice president enjoys pension. I'm not a principal officer, but seeing the way they work hard, there's nothing wrong. Personally, I would have said, let them enjoy that. But you see, the dynamic of our society at the moment, the situation where we are at the moment may not accommodate that. It may not be, timely to do that now. So it has to wait. So we ask it to wait. The same applies to immunity. If you ask me any day, I will tell you that the distractions where the principal or the presiding officers are dragged up and down instead of focusing core mandate of the Constitution with regards to their offices and doing the job, and they're being dragged up and down the corridors of various courts in Nigeria. It's a distraction, and are they supposed to be protected while doing the job? Personally, again, I'm not speaking for the House. Personally speaking, I would have thought that, they should be given some shield for the period they are going to be doing that work so that they will focus well. But my view as an individual is not the entire view of the House. And the House operates through majority. Numbers is what determines how we go, either towards the right or towards the left. And in this case, the House voted against their own institution. That is to show you the transparency of the process. That is to show you the commitment of the spirit of the Ninth Assembly in doing not what they want in a self-serving mode, but doing what the people want. And if we said no to ourselves and what's supposed to benefit some of us or all of us, it means that the credibility in saying no to certain things we believe is not yet right, though it might be needful, but not yet expedient based on our, realities. I mean, we've not gone outside the expectation of those who have sent us here. So many of them called from our stakeholders, as saying, this is the pattern we need to go. That is the pattern we need to do. I know the issue of female voting and the participation of the women in governance is going to come up. You're going to throw that question again. But let me mention this. The orientation of our people, the leadership of the women. The senator that is there has been a leader in her workplace, seen as a leader in her house. And we need to introduce that culture of leadership, where our traditional leadership system will begin to accommodate the capacity of women. And it comes through orientation, it comes through strong advocacy, not just at the parliament, but starting from the grassroots, where the emirs and the faith-based organization leaders, the traditional rulers, and all those people that appear on the stakeholders administration list will buy into it and say, you know what, gentlemen who are representing us, we want you to vote in favor of this or that. But if we pretend as if they don't exist, if we pretend that these are not realities, religious realities, cultural realities, tradition, then we are living in a lie. So the orientation does not just start from the parliament. The advocacy should not be limited to the parliament. The lobbying should not be limited to the parliament. The civil society organizations, I commend them, and the women, including the senator that is there, Kironye Georgia, the wife of the president, wife of the vice president, they've done tremendously well. But it's a step in the right direction. More work needs to be done, and it goes beyond the parliament, so that those who are the electorate, the stakeholders that control the parliaments and the representative, will be able to have a buy-in and make it easier for the representative to vote in favor of such all-important bills in the future as they're presented.
Honorable Benjamin Kalu, thank you. You have just whittled down my question, so I'm not going to ask you my next question, because you made a statement earlier on that the voting pattern reflected the outcome of consultations, and of course votes or bills that were rejected was a reflection of the wills of your constituents. I wouldn't ask you further questions on that, because you've already said that consultation should go beyond, the National Assembly to also, the traditional stools and other people. So I hope the women are listening. But let me bring into this conversation Professor Joy Ezilo. I know she will respond to that, as well as Professor Joy Ezilo. Thank you. In terms of deepening democracy and good governance, I want you to look at the worth of the bills passed. 6 of the 49 bills include bills to either change or correct names of local government, streets.
Yes, I may have missed first part of your question because I was just admitted again, readmitted now. Yes, you can repeat, please.
Well, I was hoping that you will maybe say a word or two about what Honorable Kalu said about those bills that were rejected, especially as it affects the bills seeking for more autonomy or inclusion for the gender. I was hoping that you would speak to that, as well as look at the worth of the bills passed in terms of deepening democracy and good governance. 6 out of the 49 bills passed, are seeking to change or correct names of local governments or areas.
Yeah, thank you very much. On the correction of local government areas, I don't know why those were rejected, because majority of them were indeed accepted. So it could be a lot of contestation sometime around naming, which is not uncommon in our climate. But those type of things, one would have thought automatically would pass. But I'm sure some will have been lobbying for it not to pass. So there may have been further mistakes in the spelling. But then I think in general, let's just get back to the fact that out of the 68 bills, majority of them passed, was a good thing. But out of the 19 that failed, it was very disappointing to learn that 5 of the bills that focused on or gender-related or women-related all failed. And that's where I think there is an element of deliberate act not to pass those bills, especially when you look at bills. Originally, bill number 68 was part of number 45, and it was just removed from that 45 and made 68 in order to make sure that it's not when this one passed, the whole thing will pass. And that I'm talking about the bill on affirmative action in the appointment of ministers and commissioners, which the House of Reps approved, increasing the MEGA or the mere 10% to 20%. But it failed woefully at the Senate anyway. So in the end, no gender-related bill scaled through. And we are talking about special seat for women, expansion of the scope of citizenship by registration so that it can accommodate Nigerian women who are married to foreign spouses. We are talking about affirmative action in party executives. We are talking about indigenship rights. We are talking about affirmative action in the appointment of commissioners. And when you look at those bills, it borders on about 50% of Nigerian population, which women make up 50% of the population. And if indeed the legislative arm had consulted with their constituency, they would have known that these bills were popular and they were what Nigerian women wanted. Because in making laws, one of the desiderata is that it must be inclusive, and it has to include all that, the other gender. There are female and male gender. And you cannot make law that totally exclude half of the population of Nigeria. How do we intend to develop? How do we intend to deepen our democracy? How do we intend to have sustainable development when gender is clearly one of the indices for measuring that? And this is not surprising that Nigeria is a laggard in Africa. It lags behind every other continent, every other country in Africa. We don't even need to go beyond the African continent to see progressive constitution. At least I was part of drafting of Rwanda constitution more than 20 years ago, 2001. And then we have the provision recognizing affirmative action. And today we know what it has translated into. In Kenyan constitution, they have similar provision. In Tanzania, they have similar provision. And in terms of proportional representation and proportional seat, you look at Uganda, you look at Senegal, you look at also Cape Verde. There are many African countries. This is the trend, and that's where we should be headed. But to think that we still have legislative arm that's supposed to be a bridge between the people and the executive, whereas the executive gave all his support. You can see the wife of the president, all other appointees, executive ministers, they were all there fully backing these bills, yet it failed. I think Nigerian women, they are outraged. They have a lot of reasons to be angry. And in fact, the legislative arm with the upcoming election, they are very lucky that Nigeria is largely still a literate country, because elsewhere, none of them will come back. None of those that voted against those bills will make it back, because their constituency and the major electorate, they should know the consequences of this, and they should be held to account, because that gender accountability to your constituency is part of their primary purpose or duty for effective legislation and being effective legislator. So you cannot go there, and when your community wants this, you'll be going the other way. Yes, there are issues of culture and cultural particularities, but I don't even think with the bills in question that this comes into, it doesn't play on, because like the special seat will take effect in 2027. It's not for 2023. So why wouldn't they want to apply this? Because also it is part of state responsibility and accountability for international and regional treaties that Nigeria is a party to. Nothing more. This has been advocated right from JG, 30%. And we're still talking about 10% not being approved, 20% not being approved. Where are we? Nigerian legislators, are they from Mars or somewhere else? Because I don't know how they will walk into any civilized country, go into Europe and be able to defend their action. And I mean, because I know some supported it, not all the legislators. I have to be clear, because there are ones that supported it, not even just the women. There are men that supported it, and those men you can see in the voting. I think by the voting also, the one on expansion of the scope of registration, for example, yes, in the Senate was 83, and then no, in the House of Rep about 135. And if you look at that, at least Senate overwhelmingly voted for this. And this should normally pass, because what we are talking about is what Nigerians enjoy all over the world, especially men who marry foreign spouses, whether in Nigeria, outside Nigeria. They acquire citizenship, they acquire legal residency by that. So why should it be different for a Nigerian woman? And by the way, how many Nigerian women are married to foreign spouses? And we are talking about in other countries, like in Zimbabwe. I remember a case even over 25 years ago, where the Constitutional Court trashed out this type of provision and say it is a blatant discrimination against the women folk to even have a law that favors women. That is contrary to Section 42, and such provision should be eliminated. If you look at Section 262A, and that was what the amendment wanted to address. And it shouldn't take, I have represented some of these women. I recall the last one in Nigeria, married to a Cameroonian. And the issue of school, how this was impacting the family. Finally, they had to relocate and they moved to US. So we have to make sure that laws that, women's voice counts and matter, because women can hold themselves bound by laws that doesn't represent them. You look at indigenship rights. This is an issue that is affecting women across sectors at state level. Why can't they legislate effectively on that? Issues of independent candidates, of course, we celebrate some of those milestones. There are milestones, yes, but then the gender one has marred this very Ninth Assembly's work. They missed an opportunity to engrave their names and leave a legacy. They have missed that opportunity. And it will take time. It will take time. Yes, there are opportunities for other laws like gender and equal opportunities bill. Probably they can immediately pass that to assuage women. Because if not, they go to pool. I think the campaign should come back to their constituency. And that's where the women will take it. These men are against you, and that's why they voted against your interest. And there is no way you shouldn't be voting to bring them back to power. And it's very simple and easy to make. And I think once women are already occupying National Assembly protesting, but I think beyond this protest, I don't even know why women should work so hard in Nigeria to have a law, represent their interests, or a law to be in their best interest. Why should they work like that? The legislature should be the one championing this, because they know this is what is needed. They shouldn't be cajoled or lobbied or advocated for to vote for what is right. But at times I doubt whether some of them do read these bills, because I'm looking at it, whether Bill 35, 36, 37, 38, 6, I say, did they read this bill? Especially 38 on expansion of scope of citizenship. Because if they really read that bill, they will see there is nothing innocuous about it. They should be able to immediately approve it. And I think this is where Senate 83 votes for is very encouraging, because it means that some of them read it and understood it. And in the House, I don't know why this type of bill was voted down against, with over 135 voting against it. But I think they should take a second look. Yes, I know the timelines and it's very, we're going into election, but this is also more reason why they should try to make sure that this process works for both men and women in Nigeria. And women shouldn't be begging for it. I don't think women should be begging for this. The legislature should go back and do their homework.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Joy Zilo, for the points that you have raised. Incidentally, when we had the first part of this conversation last week, and we were talking about citizenship for spouses of Nigerian women, I had raised the Zimbabwe example and also indicated that I wasn't sure what the state of the law was as at the time I was speaking, namely that it was such that in Zimbabwe in the past, the male spouse, who is a foreigner, could not acquire Zimbabwean citizenship. And women groups have been fighting for that, but you did say now that the Constitutional Court has struck that down. I'll look it up and then follow up from there. Thank you very much, Professor Joy Zilo. We'll come back to you. Honorable Suleiman Dabo, we've kept you for a long while in our Kaduna Network Center. We do know the role of the state houses of assembly. Now, all of this that we are discussing will ultimately rest on the positive response of 24 state houses of assembly. Let's begin perhaps with the toughest part of all of this. There is a widespread view that state houses of assembly in general do not have a mind of their own, and that you will have to wait for directions or directives from the state chief executives, namely the governors. Therefore, all that is being discussed, applauded, or otherwise condemned will rest on your shoulders, but on what the governors themselves would say. Are we expecting state houses of assembly to be truly independent in considering these bills when they do receive them?
Thank you very much for this very, very important question. I think it is important because I have heard all the conversations, all the submissions from the people, from the discussants, and I think it's important that we understand that the major problems we are facing today regarding the issue of rejection or acceptance has to do with the legal operational framework, that is the Constitution of Nigeria itself. Why I'm saying this is, before answering your question, I need to give this background. If you look at it, historically, Nigeria, I think we've never had even a democratized constitution. Our constitution is a product of military rule. So there are a lot of issues related, as we are discussing now. We have to look at the stages. First of all these things are emanating from the National Assembly, that is from the Senate, the state, the House of Representatives. And thereafter, it will come down to us, and the final stage, it will go to the President for his assent. it depends on, happily there is a professor of law here. I remembered in 2010, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, I think Olisa, there was an issue related to amendment that he had to even go to the court of law, I think a federal high court in Lagos, to seek for an explanation whether there was the need for even the president to assent to a bill taking into cognizance the provision of Section 9, subsection 2 and 3 of the Nigerian Constitution, vis-a-vis Section 5, subsection 1 of Part 2 of the Nigerian Constitution, subsection 1, A and B, saying that in Section 9, it is explicitly clearly stated that the assent of the president is not even required there. However, at the end of the day, the judge in the Federal High Court ruled that that particular assent is required. But however, many legal luminaries in Nigeria argued further that there was the need for some of them to even go to the Supreme Court to challenge or to make an appeal up to the level of Supreme Court to challenge that position, because there is no ambiguity in subsection 9. Now, having said that, if you bring the whole issue to the level of the state houses of assembly, what you've said to some extent is correct, because you cannot starve human beings in the midst of abundance and you expect them to go contrary to the person that is giving them food. When they can be independent, they can be autonomous, they can have food to eat, if you give them the opportunity to do it, but you give the food to somebody who has control of the food. So what do you expect? So I think we are in support of the independence of the state legislature and judiciary, and we are, in Kaduna State, we are almost there, we are almost done, but you see, there is a challenge. And I think in one of the programs I featured here, I mentioned that there are even states that are not even keen on issues related to independence of the legislature at state levels, given their financial status. Because they realize that if they go even into the autonomy today, they are not likely going to get what they are being given now. Now, this money that is coming from the center goes straight to the state coffers. So if you want an autonomy, there has to be an instrument whereby the deductions may be as indicated when His Excellency, the President of Nigeria, mentioned in the Executive Order number 10 that any state governor that fails to comply, he will make sure that the deduction is done at the source and sent. Now, if you look at it, I gave an example with a state like Niger State, which I spoke with one of my colleagues from there, which he said for them, they are not keen, they are not ready for it. So it is not likely that if some of these things are going down without taking into cognizance the asymmetry of the different assemblies, because there is this asymmetry at the different levels, the different states. The peculiarities are there. The financial situation in Kaduna is totally different from the financial situation in Niger State. Now, to sum up everything, there is a very important issue that has been discussed here on the issue of acceptance, wider acceptance, or carrying the yearnings and aspirations of the larger population of Nigeria in doing all these things that we are doing. When you have a constitution of a country, because by nature, written constitutions are very rigid in terms of process and procedure. If you want to amend, repeal, or enact a law, there are special procedures that you have to go. Now, in Nigerian constitution, I remember that a lot of civil society groups and advocacy groups have been arguing on the issue of referendum. But sadly, that aspect of referendum which is obtainable in other climes it has no provision, has no place in Nigerian constitution. So it is now the responsibility also of Nigerians and the National Assembly itself and the state houses of assembly and other independent even observers to look at this issue to say, okay, if you want a more or less a democratized constitution that will capture the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians, that aspect of referendum should come in so that it can have that legitimacy and validity, because by the time you throw issues of this nature to a referendum, at the end of the day, there will be no representative that will say no to it. Everybody will have to accept, because now I can sit down and say, this is what my people want, or this is what they don't want. I'm a politician. Whatever we are doing, we are, of course, our motivations, our speeches and whatever are politically motivated. But however, if you throw it in such a way that it will be an issue that even the global society will witness, that Nigerians are going into a referendum on a certain issue, either related to amendment, repealing of a law, or even a new law being enacted. It will have that acceptance, and there is no lawmaker, be it at the center or at the subnational level, that will say no to it. Having said that, I will also want to add on the issue of the local government's financial independence and also administrative independence or autonomy, as the case may be. You see, one of the key areas that has been discussed at the National Assembly, which is part of the bills that are being considered or have been considered, because already it has passed that level at the National Assembly, is the issue of abrogation of just state local government's joint account. For example, in Kaduna State, Malam Nasru El-Rufai has already given that autonomy to local governments. If you go to so many local governments in Kaduna State, it's unprecedented what they are even doing. For example, in my local government, you will see a local government chairman executing projects of over 2 billion naira. It's there, it's visible, it's verifiable. Even so if we can have this kind of, so you can say with this kind of attitude, you can say that outrightly, whatever comes related to that, to Kaduna State, it will certainly have our assent. We will approve it. Because we are already seeing the results even without the more or less legal backing, so to say. So I think it depends on, we need to look at it from two angles. One, related to the issue of the legal instrument, the Constitution of Nigeria. Where are the lacunas, where are the deficiencies that has to be looked into holistically that will address national problems, given the fact that there are asymmetries and peculiarities in the different states. That is number one. Number two is given people the voice in whatever we are going to say. Of course.
All right, Honorable Suleiman Dabo, we'll just pause you for a while and take a short break. When we come back, of course, we'll continue with that conversation.
Busy ancient city of Onitsha is a commercial hub with millions of commuters seamlessly linking other states daily for business, leisure, and other purposes. To upscale its road network, the construction of a 1.6-kilometer long second Niger bridge, including a 10.3-kilometer highway furnished with other infrastructure, has been in motion by the federal government. This project will ease congestion on the existing 56-year-old Onitsha bridge and boost the economic capacity of the state as it easily connects to other parts of the country. The completion of the world-class second Niger Bridge Onitsha will be one of the many proud moments of the state, its people, Nigerians, and foreign investors. Onitsha, which hosts the largest market in Africa, is geared up to boast of an impressive road network. Once again, these moments are made alive by the federal government, and it is deserving of all the applause.
Thank you for the rejections that taught me to keep striving. Thank you for the long hours that taught me discipline. Thank you for the knockdowns that taught me to bounce back, and for the unexpected victories that taught me to never give up. Thank you for making me who I am.
We've been trying our best to contain the situation, and in our operations, we've been able to make a lot of recoveries. We've been able to also arrest suspects that are involved in this kind of activities, and we've been able to also recover particularly arms and ammunition from those who are carrying it unlawfully and disturbing the peace of the people. But generally, our morale in the Nigerian police is always guided by our commitment to do what we have sworn to do. Peace and security must be looked into as a priority by all, to look at security as the business of all of us.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, and it's live on the network service. So let me throw my question to Honorable Benjamin Carlo, if he's still with us via Zoom. Some of the bills passed on devolution of powers moved some of the infrastructures from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. For instance, the one on airports, as well as prisons and all that. What was the consideration really before in passing, these bills? Did we look at the capacity of states to really take on those responsibilities?
Yeah, you are referring to the railway line leaving the exclusive list to the concurrent list. You are referring to the construction of airports going to the concurrent list. I'm also sure that we have the generation of power and distribution of power from area covered by the national grid to be available to the state via the concurrent list. The reason behind this is to stimulate development in the sub-regions. It's important that we'll start, opening up the space for economic stimulation and development of the various states. Take for example, Abia State now, where I come from. The sitting governor there have done a great job with Professor Naji to make sure that geometric power station becomes a thing that Abians will be proud of in Aba. So they are going to be guaranteeing the generation of this power, the distribution of this power, and 24 hours, 7 weeks of constant electricity. You just imagine what that is going to do for a commercial hub like Aba. It will begin to return the glory of this hard-working city of Aba. And I also read recently that Governor Hope Uzodinma of APC in Imo State is also thinking of generating power through what they call, I think, is the balloon technology, using, wastewater, flood water, and all that. When these begin to trickle down all around the nation, the burden on the national grid, for example, will be reduced. And the available capacity that we have in the nation will begin to be able to bridge certain gaps because of what is happening independently at the various states. Now let's look at railway. If you want to think about regional economic integration agenda of various regions of the country, railway running across one state to the other, through the participation of the states. Let's take, for example, southeastern region where I come from. If the 5 states decide to have a private port to be able to build a rail track that will run from Anambra to Imo to Enugu to Ebonyi, all around, to Abia, it makes the movement of goods and services to be easier, to be quicker, and it will enhance the economic activities and economic life of the people in that region. And you see, this is development-driven amendment. That is what we are looking at, so that the burden will be reduced from the center. And one has always asked, just like you asked now, do they have the capacity to do this on their own? There are spaces for PPP, for these states to come together and use their bank, different banks to provide guarantee to investors from overseas who have confidence in making these developments around their state. So it's a step in the right direction, and it is channeled towards increasing development around the sub-region. So that's the spirit behind that particular piece of legislation. And then when you come to, still on that, when you come to correctional services, many have argued, like I said, I proposed that bill, and many have argued, why do we want to put a burden on the state? You have federal high courts, you have state high courts, you have magistrate court. You cannot be sending the burden of offenses that you convicted your citizens in the state high court and sending them to federal prisons. So if there are smaller offenses, they should stay in the state's prisons. If there are major offenses like you have in most countries of the world, they have the minor offenses and the major offenses should go to the federal prisons. And if you park a vehicle and it is towed, or you break any of those simple laws, the state should be able, if they are convicting you, they should be able to make provision for where you will stay. And we call it correctional services. And it's high time we started embracing the economics, that's around it, the development element of it. Many go in there to become
Honorable Kalu, thank you very much for your comment. Incidentally, I mean, there are persons who will be delighted, for instance, with the movement of correctional services, or prisons as they used to be known, from the exclusive to the concurrent list. Until the military takeover in 1966, you had a situation where all prisons were not necessarily federal prisons. And my question is going to Professor Joy Ezilo. Professor Joy Ezilo, I have a two-tier question for you. One has to do with the correctional services. Is this likely, therefore, to impact what has been described as the unacceptable state of prison congestion in the country, with all manner of persons awaiting trial lumped together in federal prisons? That's one. Second one is the enlargement of Chapter 4 of the Constitution by the introduction of free compulsory basic education, which therefore makes it justiciable, unlike what we had previously in Chapter 2. But tell us, is this likely to make a dent on the millions of out-of-school children that we have had? Will there be a willingness, or how do you compel the enforcement or respect of this provision if it does become part of the 5th alteration to the Constitution. So 2 issues. Are we likely to see a salutary effect on prison congestion with the movement of prisons to concurrent? And then secondly, the enlargement of Chapter 4 with the introduction of free compulsory basic education. How enforceable?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, ideally, and that's the essence of the mischief intent to kill. We all know the state of our correctional facilities today. And with this decentralization and devolution that has happened, it will come within state oversight. And I think that will help a lot. But again, Nigerian factor, and knowing also the budget issues and budget constraints, that may not happen in the immediate. Already, I know states have been supporting some of these correctional facilities, just like they've been supporting the police in terms of security related issues. But it's a good thing that has happened. And that will also help states to go into partnership, into public-private partnership that also happened in other climes. But then with those privatization, and if we don't have standards, and enforcement of standards in Nigeria is always a problem. The exploitation will come in and people will just make profit out of it. And then there wouldn't be actual improvement the way it is intended. But notwithstanding, this is a very progressive provision. And I like that, but still the federal government should have a share of the problem depending on, and they can work this out. And that's how it happened in other crimes. Because if it's a federal crime and someone is prosecuted and is jailed in a state prison, what percentage will the federal government pay? And the federal government will still, of course, everyone still run to Abuja and they get all their allocation from there. But then there should be a specific federal obligation under that, and then the state can also go into public-private partnership with others who can run it professionally. Because we've seen services run by states, and here I mean states of the federation, and in general, even the federal government are never up to international best practice because of so many factors coming. They will just perform it just like normal civil service work approach. But if you bring in private sector, you set the standard, you now regulate, and then you enforce the oversight and the standard, then it will be better. And I hope that this, what they can do, is easier now than before when it was in the exclusive legislatively. So that's good. On the issue of education and some amendment of section 18, or is it also Bill 18? It's very good that that happened. Of course, we already have universal basic education law that contains similar provision, but it was largely ignored or ineffective, because when you talk of basic education and right, what this has done is to make right to education a fundamental human right, which is a welcome development, because that's how it should be. No society will develop without the education that is needed. And we have to make sure that the majority of our population are educated. And if it is an enforceable right, then it means that those who keep children away from school, whether parents, whether guardians, and then other people, including even state agents, they would be punished for that, because that would be in violation of the Constitution, the supreme law of the land. I know, of course, the argument has always been that it takes money, and we know where we are, even with the ASU strike. I'm in the university system. That, it takes money to enforce this. It takes money to implement any socioeconomic right, like right to education. Yes, but the defense budget is a lot. And if we can do that, if you have more people educated, have peace education, have more, society that is aware, enlightened, then there will be less war, there will be less insecurity, and we'll all be better for it. So it is the right investment, and government should make that investment. And I think it is a very good thing. It's a very good development, and it's one of the alterations of the current constitution. And I hope it will get the 2/3 it deserves. Nobody should be able to oppose this. And like I said, universal basic education had that, but that's an ordinary law. And then for us to give it all the state backing, and including this budget that it deserves, is better that it moves to the constitution and everyone knows that they are responsible for its implementation, all arms of the government and at all levels of governance.
Well, Suleiman Dabo, quickly, just before we end our conversation, I would like to, read from you. I know you're not a mind reader, but let's, have your insight into what is likely to happen at the, state houses of assembly, at the level of the state houses of assembly, with regards to the, getting concurrence, 2/3. For one, the bill, on the independence, financial independence and administrative autonomy for state judiciaries and local governments, and other bills. What do you think is likely to happen? Are we, might there be a concurrence, or might there be more rejections?
Thank you very much. It's likely going to be on the part of concurrence, but we should note that 2/3 will amount to about 24 states, if I'm not mistaken. And we have state differences, as I've earlier stated, but I can say with certainty that from the part of Kaduna State, most definitely we are going to be on the part of concurrence. But there are other states that I can also equally, because I know the type of people that are there. They are progressive minded, and they want, because these are issues that has to do with building institutions of democracy that will stand the test of time. So if we will be able to allow it to go, so I think it will be for the betterment of the society. So I believe strongly that from the side of Kaduna State and a lot of states of the Federation, most definitely we are going to, it will sell through. So this is my position.
Thank you, Honorable Suleiman Dabo. Again, final question to Honorable Benjamin Kalu. Honorable Benjamin Kalu, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on what the women can do now that the timeline for, maybe a revisit, to the gender bills might not be favorable to them. What do you think should be done specifically?
What I think should be done is that the women should keep on with the advocacy. They should extend it to, like I always said, it should go beyond the parliament. This is an emerging democracy, and we have our, problems, bottlenecks, becoming and emerging as an advanced democracy. Comparative analysis that, pegs us against those who have come to embrace the full ethos of democracy and its principles might not be healthy considering our realities. Knowing where we are, we should go beyond the parliament and reach out, draw up a sound stakeholders administration list that will embrace not only the parliamentarians, faith-based organization leaders, the traditional leaders, even women are divided on this topic. You'll be shocked that some of the women approach us and say, we don't want any particular piece of legislation that will be discriminatory against Section 42, that will not giving us opportunity on the basis of our sex, that we don't want that. Women speaking at this time. So there should be uniformity of opinion on this issue by advancing, partnering with development agencies, partnering with the civil society organization, and not ignoring. We should not ignore the relevance of these stakeholders who control the mindsets of the parliamentarians, because they voted them. They gave them their mandate. You don't expect me, those who are going to vote me back to office, saying, wait on this issue for now, and this is our reason, because we are not yet convinced. And you go against them. When you come back, they'll question you on that. So the advocacy should continue. They have done a good job by putting their foot forward. They should continue. They should not give up. There's another amendment coming. If they miss it at this time, there's going to be another opportunity for this to be incorporated. I know certainly it will be incorporated, but when? It may not be now because of our realities and what I just explained. let them lobby more. I still believe that the women can lobby more. I believe that the lobbying was just limited to the National Assembly, more especially. They should extend it so that we can have more buy-in, by the citizens of Nigeria on this all-important bill, because I believe it's all important.
Carlo, thank you. A final word from Professor Ezilo on that. Professor Ezilo, which way for women now?
Honorable, I disagree a lot with you because you actually tend to undermine decades of work of women in Nigeria. And I mean it by every word of it, because we've been engaging, we've been advocating, social advocacy, many groups as civil society, and from inception of the amendment of 1999 Constitution, women have also engaged, and it's the same issues. It has always been. And even to amend the Constitution within Section 42 to really give effect to the true meaning of principle of equality and non-discrimination has become problematic. So if you just dismiss it like this, it means women have not been working. I've told you personally, I've been involved in the process, and I've been part of drafting of many constitutions in Africa. And in my own country, working on this subject for the past 20 years, we've achieved nothing, and we have nothing to show for it. Remember that women constitute that your electorate. Because if you say, what are the stakeholders, traditional rulers, they are also women as their subject as well. So please don't just assume that women haven't lobbied enough. You, as a legislator, should be the champion of your own electorate, of their demands and of what women wanted. Women actually were in all the public hearings, and they were quite effective, and they were active. So I don't think this is a true state of affairs. Going forward, yes, even if they can't be included, there are other legislations before the National Assembly that they can quickly pass to assuage Nigerian women. And that includes Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill, Women's Support Bill. And women's support bill is on also enhancing representation of women in politics. If you look at the statistics, it's appalling. And it talks about our own state of development when you compare to other countries, like even Tunisia. And it's not about religion. Senegal, for example, where you have even over 90% of the people as other one religion or Muslim. So Islam is not about religion. I don't think so. And they have made this progressive law. How do you explain that? It draws us back. So legislators, please approve for women Gender and Equal Opportunity Bill, and then also the Women's Support Bill that can increase their representation in Parliament. If you look at Sustainable Development Goal, one of the indicators of measuring implementation of that is the proportion of representation of women in the Parliament. And if you look at it, Nigeria is 6.4%, under 10%. You compare that with all the other countries. In the World Report, Nigeria just surpassed only 7 countries, and all of them are even war and afflicted countries. So how do you explain that? Are we not part of civilized technology?
Professor,
why should things be different?
Professor Joy Ezilo,
please, there is no excuse at all for this legislative mishap that women have suffered.
All right. Professor Joy Ezilo of the Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, would like to thank you for being our guest on Good Morning Nigeria today. There will be an opportunity some other time, I believe, for us to interrogate some other aspects of the proposed amendments to the Constitution. We also had Honorable Suleiman Dabo, who represents Zaria constituency in the Kaduna State House of Assembly, joining us from our Kaduna Network Center. Deep thanks for your insights. Earlier, we had Senator Uche Ekunife, who represents Anambra Central Senatorial District. She was with us via Zoom. She's the chair of the Senate Committee on Science and Tech. But after a while, we lost a connection to her. But, of course, she had the opportunity of also making her pitch on some of the issues that we have discussed this morning. Honorable Benjamin Kalu, spokesperson of the House of Reps, chair of the House Committee on Media and Public Affairs. We appreciate your being with us on Good Morning Nigeria. All right, so let's take our sports segment.
Nigeria's Flamingos thrashed DR Congo 3-0 in the second round of the India 2022 FIFA Under